on out, you big fish. Fight!
I told you guys I'd be back soon, so here I am. This video I'd like to talk about some game demos I've played. Originally, I was planning to get this video out as the demos were still available and before the game's full release, but typical for me, it took way longer to finish or work on than I thought. So, here we are. I'm not exactly in a position to buy all these games for a video, but I do hope these small slices are enough to help you decide if you're interested or not. Starting off strong with I Am Your Beast by the people at Strange Scaffold. I Am Your Beast is a fast-paced, kicking and throwing shit simulator that does very, very well to invoke the whole rogue agent starts a killing spree fantasy. You're playing as Harding, a Rambo or Jason Bourne type character who is called back for like the 5th or 6th last job, and after a bird casualty,
then I heard the gunshot.
And a very polite no,
We're on the same fucking team!
The government decides to harass him and destroy his home until he says yes or dies. The art style of this game is really fantastic. It's going for a comic bookish style that I think it nails overall with this choice of colors, which is a really nice cold palette, and parts of it at times can just be downright pretty, while not feeling out of place during the bloody, explosive action. Which, speaking of, I wanted to mention one of my favorite little details, I'm not sure what to call it. And I couldn't find a better place in the script to put this, but I really found myself loving the big X that shows up on kills, which probably was added mostly for player feedback, in which I think it does a good job. I also feel like it acts as sort of like a sensor a lot of the time, especially on headshots, which adds to this kind of Kane and Lynch 2 vibe, with the sensor making kills feel more like visceral or gory. The music is also stellar. I'm not a huge music guy, so forgive me if I muck up the genre or terminology, but I think this kind of bass-heavy techno fits the rest of the game super well. Also, another small thing, the clean menus, and to a lesser extent the goon designs, remind me of Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Not a lot of thoughts or critique about that, I'm just a huge fan of the concepts and the style. Now the gameplay of Beast can be summed up as with an emphasis on speed and precision with different types of kills essentially subtracting from your overall time to complete the level. For example, just a plain, boring kill like hitting a dude over the head with a tree branch subtracts 0.3 seconds, while taking that guy's knife and throwing it into his buddy's neck subtracts 0.6. There's more types of kills than that, of course. I think the highest subtraction I saw was a full second for an explosion kill. I really appreciate the time required for the next rank being super clear to the player, both during the level and after. It's not something that is required, but it helps players shoot for that next rank because it feels oh so close. At least that's how it works for me. The challenge levels especially do a great job of this. I unfortunately don't have any footage of them, so you'll just have to make do with this. They really made me feel like I was pushing my limits to get the S rank, and at the best of times, felt like puzzles with the little click moments that I had that greatly improved my time. But maybe I'm just a bit dumb. Either way, they were a lot of fun. One of the only problems I had with this game, other than it being short, is the climbing. As it was a bit awkward and clunky, and it only served to make you take longer in levels, it felt like. I feel like they'd be fine as a sort of pre-level planning sort of way. At the start of levels, the timer hasn't started, and it kind of lets you get a nice scout around for a good route. So maybe jumping from tree to tree could feel good when implemented in that regard. Either way, it seems like the devs heard the players, and from the gameplay I saw of the full release, this is completely fixed. You definitely owe it to yourself to check out I Am Your Beast, along with any other of their games like El Paso Elsewhere and Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator. They have yet to release a game that didn't vibe with me on a spiritual level, and from the looks of it, that is not stopping anytime soon. Far into the future, men and internet have merged into a new being. Humans need dopamine every 10 seconds, or else they die. Something something Robo Billionaires, something something Peace Corps, something something Influencer Prince.
Go, go, kill, punch, kick, slide, shoot, stab, clobber, drink soda!
Mullet Madjack is a first-person shooter roguelike made by the wonderful people at Hammer 95 Studios that feels a lot like that, at least sometimes. You play as Jack Banhammer, a moderator who is tasked with rescuing an influencer princess from Robo Billionaires in exchange for a neat new pair of shoes. Because the viewers of 2095 are so addicted to dopamine, you only have 10 seconds to clear each level. However, you can refill this time by killing, drinking soda, and clobbering people with whatever you find lying around, with extra seconds rewarded for flashy sorts of kills. After each level, you get to choose between 3 upgrades that add a sort of small roguelike element to the game. These range from more damage or ammo to brand new weapons and awarding extra seconds for nutshots. There's a couple boss fights in the game, and they're super fun, thanks to the super punchy effect and sound work that the game has. Though in these sections you're cut off from the Peace Corps and have a regular health bar like most games, which I'm a tad conflicted on. As I'm sure you may have guessed so far, 80 to 90% of the game is the loop of going through levels in just 10 seconds, and thus, more than a few of the upgrades support this feature, so whenever you just remove the timer, it basically makes those upgrades useless. Now the fights weren't impossible with mostly timer-based upgrades, they're still perfectly playable and engaging like I said, and I can see it as a meaningful choice over the full length of the game, where you decide if you want to make boss fights or the average level easier to beat. But part of me thinks I would have liked to see a boss fight that still had me managing that timer based around a health bar, like killing goons or doing things around the boss arena that keep my time from going out. So I teased it a little bit, but before each of the boss fights there are these creepy little sections whenever you're cut off from the Peace Corps, and you walk around these dark-ass hallways with your flashlight, and while it's a very small part of the demo, I enjoyed them quite a bit. When the music stops bumping, the light ceases to flash, and it's you, your flashlight, and whatever else you might find in the halls. And it's just something that I'd like to bring up, and I hope the game plays with more a little in the full version. I'm not sure if this is a skill issue for me specifically or not, but I found the game a little too easy on normal. I think the base gameplay loop is fun, you know, just dashing and kicking and shooting whomever I fancy, but due to the lack of room variety and plentiful soda machines, it felt a little boring at times. Though, on the opposite end, I thought the next hardest difficulty was a pretty huge jump, and without any real defensive options, it sometimes felt like RNG whenever I was hit by a stray shotgun blast that would one-shot me completely. The art style is that sort of 90s vaporwave feel, as well as using a little bit of retro anime styling in the cutscenes. It's all pretty colorful and in your face, except when it isn't. Other than that, the soundtrack is also really something. It scratches that heavy percussion itch that a lot of techno music does in my ape brain, and it fits the game super well. My favorite song is probably the one from the intro called Asphalt Drive, but like I said, every song here is super good. Overall, I think if you're a fan of fast-paced shooters or games with an art style that is in your face and flashing all over the place, you need to check out Mullet Madjack. Up next, in a total shift of tone, here we have Crush House. Crush House is a wonderfully interesting game by Nereal, self-described as a thirst-person shooter where you take on the role as a reality TV producer. Yes, not since Overlord in 2007 have we had the opportunity to play a character so evil. But in all seriousness, Crush House was probably the one that I was least interested in when I started to play these games, but it ended up being probably my favorite of the concepts after I played them. As the producer role may imply, you're in charge of the show. You pick the cast, buy the props, run the ads, and decide what gets recorded, all to satisfy whatever the audience's desires are for that night, and they do change every night, and the amount you need to satisfy them grows as the week progresses. There isn't much plot to the demo, other than some implication of something going on that happens toward the end, so I won't really dwell on it here. Unlike the previous game, which had its super in-your-face and busy style, Crush House goes for a more cute and calm approach, but no less colored, which suits the game very well. The atmosphere and music give off this chill beach house vibe that I love quite a lot. Gameplay this time around is relatively simple. Follow people around the house while they interact with each other and film what they do, with the ultimate goal of satisfying a certain number of audiences that tune in that night. Those can be moms, drama fans, film students, or even plumbers. Whenever you're not actively filming, you get to run ads that give you a little boost to your money. That helps you buy props and things to make certain types of interactions happen. Towards the end or middle of the week, they introduce quests, kind of. They're just requests from the contestants to usually either not film something in particular, like someone's ass, or give them extra attention, and sometimes these conflict with the viewer's desires of the day. Basically, you score good boy points if you successfully complete them, but whether or not there's an actual tangible reward remains to be seen. But my gut says there isn't, and that's fine. It's a choice between being nice and treating the contestants like human beings, or being a producer that's 1000% focused on the views. Probably the only point I'll knock against the game is a lot of the time the detection for what I was filming was a little wonky. Like a shitty out-of-focus shot from behind a chair would score higher than something in focus and clear to see. This also extends to one of the little requests that I had. Someone asked me not to film her ass, and while I was trying 100% not to focus on it, sometimes it just being in frame would cause the bar and to go up and cause me to fail. Speaking of, maybe it's the film guy in me, but I did find myself wishing that I had a little bit more control over the camera, like being able to tilt it for a sick Dutch angle instead of having to walk back and forth next to a chair or a wall. Or maybe a manual focus will be nice. A part of me also dreams of a cool feature where you can actually save and play back the recorded parts of your show just for fun. Maybe with how many ads you usually run, it wouldn't be great, but I think it would be interesting. Although it'll always be easier to say this game should add this when you have very little technical knowledge on how to make games and you're not the one doing the hard work. So it's not like the lack of a feature similar to this really lowers the game in my eyes. It's just merely spitballing. Great game! Cool game! If you like the idea of following little dudes around and filming everything they do for profit, then you should totally check this out. Wild Bastards is an FPS roguelike with a focus on strategic shootouts and posse management made by Blue Manchu. It's also a spiritual successor to Void Bastards, if you ever got around to playing that. Like I said, Wild Bastards has a big focus on tactical shootouts, a far cry from something like Mullet Madjack. You spend the fight levels carefully skulking around cover and give yourself the best advantage possible. You can only have 2 outlaws fighting in a shootout, and it's a simple and instant button press to swap between them. So far in the outlaws I've played, there isn't any redundancy in terms of how each outlaw plays, and they each have their own little quirks that are fun to learn and work around. There's also pickups around the level that can heal or allow your character to use their special power, like Doc Casinos, that lets you just kill a random enemy on the map, which I found kind of fun. But in those little combat arenas, I found that there was a certain type of enemy that I thought was super unfun to fight. With any of the outlaws I had at my disposal. They were these little snake enemies called rattlers that would burrow and pop up around the map. They seemed to have a bit of health and had a pretty big range from what I saw, along with a very thin hitbox. All this, combined with their attack doing massive poison damage, along with the roguelike nature of the game, made them super annoying and unfun to fight. They were the only enemies I had a problem with, though. The regular goons were a real joy to fight. They give funny little callouts, give you hints on where they are, and it never felt unfair to fight one. Even the little boss fight you get if you stay in a level too long never felt impossible and were pretty exciting and difficult. Like I said, even if it was something that you're intended to avoid. Now would be a good time to mention the other half of the game, which I can't find the words to describe what system it is, but if you've played Slay the Spire, it uses that same sort of move your guy around the map to get to shops and counters and things of that nature, that type of stuff. Collecting mods and upgrades for your outlaws always felt like a significant boost or deviation from how the stock character plays. There's also a social side to the sort of management part of the game, where all your outlaws have different relationships with each other, and some, for a time, will outright refuse to work or fight with another one. This can be fixed with the universal peace offering of a can of beans. Now, this doesn't really matter too much in the demo I played, except for the very last outlaw you unlock will not work with Smokey. So I don't have too much experience with the system, but it shows overall great potential for whenever you get a larger band of outlaws. The art style of Wild Bastards may be my favorite out of the group, maybe only beaten by the Kane and Lynch 2 vibes I get from I Am Your Beast. The levels I played were such a gorgeous, vibrant collection of oranges and purples that look amazing, along with some truly inspired character design work where neither the sci-fi or western elements take over or drown out each other, and simply sing together in a lovely chorus. I mean, speaking on characters, the writing and voice acting is stupendous. I mean, just look at this cool as fuck roulette robot. Look at him! Wild Bastards is a superbly pretty game with great characters and fun combat. It's not exactly without faults, but very few games are, and I think that in this instance, it's something I can easily overlook because the rest of it's just so damn good. So yeah, if the gameplay I've shown looks interesting, or if you're a fan of the setting, you should definitely check this one out. And that about wraps it up for tonight. I hope you had some fun. Feel free to check out the description for links to the full versions of these games if you're interested. And I know I say this every time, but stay tuned. I've been working on some things in the background, so hopefully it's not a super long time until the next video. I will see you guys next time.